welcome everybody to webinar here hosted by ExPrep. I know that you're not here to see Brooks, the sales guy from ExPrep. You're here to listen and learn some stuff from our, I'll call him the host versus our guest is, our host is going to be David Brown from the University of Arizona. I got some things to talk to you guys a little bit about David before he gets started and give you guys some kind of format of how we'll do things. One thing I know that David will end up saying it or he'll encourage it, but there is a Q&A section here on Zoom. Please feel free to ask questions as we go. I know David is prepared to be able to stop and answer stuff. So if anybody has questions, please feel free to do so. I know David has probably around 15 minutes or so worth of information to share with you guys. And then we will have an open Q&A where if we can't get to things on the fly, we'll answer some things at the end. And then also David was kind enough to stick around afterwards if there's folks that want to see some additional content that David is going to display for the group here. And David definitely has some really awesome content. I'm excited to see the extra stuff that you have, David. I know I didn't get to see that the other day. So, but let me introduce you guys to David Brown. Like I said, I look at him as the host of the show here. David's from the University of Arizona, the Eller College of Management at the University of Arizona, to be specific about it. I know there's certain things that I'm supposed to say, but I'm going to talk about David's his accomplishments. But for me, the biggest accomplishment, I think David's awesome. I think he's great to work with here at ExPrep. I think he has some really, really cool assignments that he gives to students. And I'm excited to see the things that he has. But, David's taught, several financial modeling classes, both undergrad, and he's developed the classes as well at both the undergrad and the graduate level. He's earned numerous awards, both at the University of Arizona and the University of Colorado. And David was named a top 50 undergraduate professor by Poets and Quants, which obviously is a great accomplishment and a great recognition. But the main thing, like with David, like I said, he's got some really awesome stuff to share with you guys, got a great story to tell. And if you guys have questions, definitely chime in. David will happily answer anything that you folks have. So David, they're not here to listen to me, so I'm going to turn it over to you and let you talk about about yourself and what you have going on with your students and what you're doing at the University of Arizona.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Brooks. I'm going to switch over to some slides here. Basically, I just want to talk to you guys about how I teach, what I teach, give you a little bit of background about me, and then show you some assignments so you can see what I'm doing. I'll put this at the end, but I'm happy to share any of this stuff you guys want to take a look at. I'm happy to answer questions, so please feel free to interrupt. And I think Brooks or Brandon will interrupt and kind of interject your guys' questions. So with that said, let's kind of jump in. First, I want to just tell you guys a little bit about my background. I did my undergrad at the University of Kansas. This is where I really started to learn Excel. The way I did it was through building lots of financial models on companies, right? I was part of the kind of portfolio management class at KU. We'd value a different stock every week and, build 3-statement models and do a DCF. So that was really kind of where I got my first taste of Excel. I actually went and worked in industry for a few years. I worked in high frequency trading. I actually ended up teaching myself Visual Basic there, back testing algorithms, that kind of idea. And I also worked in student loans for a little while. There I got to really know dealing with data problems more in Excel, both with SQL, moving data between systems, and really just learning a lot about, dealing with big data sets in Excel. So that was a lot of my early learning there. I did graduate school at Colorado. That's where I did my PhD. There I taught entrepreneurial finance. And this was my first time really learning how to teach Excel and teach how to build those financial statements, how to project financial statements forward. And the other big thing I learned there was that it's really hard to grade lots of models, right? Grading in Excel can get really tough. We would have a final where we would grade every model. It would take 30 minutes for every student. And all of a sudden you're at like a week or more of grading at the end of the semester, which is just too much to handle on a consistent basis. And it's not really scalable for bigger classes. So I took some of the learning there. I got my first job here at the University of Arizona. I'm now an associate professor of finance here. I've taught financial modeling for 8 years. And really during the pandemic, I started teaching an intro to Excel course. It's something that we added as a 1-credit course that goes with our intro to finance class. That way students just get more Excel and earlier in their careers. We hear this from graduating seniors a lot and also employers. I'm sure you guys hear the same thing. More Excel sooner is better. So that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. So some of what I will show you is built for that. Now, as far as my teaching journey, really where it started back in 2014 is when I started teaching financial modeling. And I started thinking about teaching a little differently when I got the students involved in financial modeling competitions. This is something I'm going to loop back into at the end because I'm actually launching a new financial modeling competition for students that will host at Arizona this fall. And I'll give you guys some details at the end. But I started with this competition called Model Off. And it was, a professional level competition. The students weren't going to win these things, but it gave them ways to get involved and see kind of more different types of models and kind of see what real world models look like versus, just kind of the in the class standard, DCF models, or let's do some time value of money stuff with retirement. It was much more applied and allowed the students that were interested to kind of push a little bit further. What I really learned from this in teaching, though, was that they had a really novel grading style. All right, so when you do these things online, you can't, grade this stuff by hand, so it has to be multiple choice questions. But the way the multiple choice questions are engineered is so when you get the answer right. And so let me just show you what I mean, because this will be a lot of what I do going forward. Imagine you're building a model where you're projecting out income statements over the next 12 months and you want to get total revenue. You're going to add it up over all 12 months. And the question would be, what is the total projected revenue for a year? And the way that answers are structured is such that if your answer is in the list, it's right? You're not going to end up with a number that is 1 penny or 2 pennies off when you're building your model. That just doesn't happen with these big of numbers. So you can really tell instantly, hey, I got the answer right. In my case, I know it's the one with 3 cents at the end, not 1 or 2 or 4. So I know I have the answer right. And now I can move on to the next part of the model. So what that allowed me to do was start building self-grading tests. And this is something that's really kind of the foundation for a lot of my teaching, is that I give students the answers and then ask them to build models to match those answers. And what this allows me to do is really guide the students along the way. So it provides these checkpoints for students as they're building a model. You can imagine in an income statement, let's check that you've got revenue right. All right, then we're going to check cost of goods sold and your gross margin. As long as that's okay, now you can move down to, interest expense or SG&A and get further down and just make sure you're building it correctly. That way you don't get to, the final DCF valuation and say, well, that's not right, and have no idea where you went wrong. So this really helps the students check their work as they go, and really, I think, encourages learning throughout the process. So now when I built these kind of on my own in Excel, and I run into a lot of challenges. First, students have all kinds of different operating systems. Mac versus PC is an obvious issue. I'm sure you guys all see that. When you start writing code in VBA to make these spreadsheets run, it doesn't always play nice with different versions, and particularly with Macs. There's a lot of things that I can do in VBA that just don't work on a Mac, and I have not been able to solve it. So that was one issue. Another issue is tracking student use, right? For a while, I would actually track, what computer a student opened a file on. That's something you can do with macros. However, it would break on the Mac. So I could see that a student logged into the account, but then I'd have a blank login. I just didn't know what to do with that. So I really couldn't prevent file sharing very well this way. And also getting the grades back out at the end. This is something I tried to do on my own. Students, again, screw up files. They corrupt them somehow. They blow up the file size. And ultimately, it ended up being much more manual than I wanted it to be. And so this is the little part of the talk where I'm going to shill for ExPrep just a little bit. And that I started working with them. Brooks actually was mentioning before the talk that we first met after a webinar like this that I attended, probably 5 years ago or so. And in that point, I basically started talking to them about, hey, can you help me solve these issues? And ultimately, that's what they do for me, is they automate a lot of the grading. They make sure students aren't using someone else's files. They're not sharing files. And the reporting is much easier. That way I can get the grades out easily, and I can do this at scale. And that's really what allowed me to teach this new Excel course that we have for, we're running 200 students through it every semester. You just can't teach this level of modeling without it being automated. So that was really the innovation that let us do these classes for the students. So what I want to do now is actually show you what I've done kind of with my current assignments to give you an idea of kind of where this has evolved and show you the assignments that are built into ExPrep and how the students go through them. Again, all these assignments are built to provide guidance and assessment. And I'm going to do it to where early in the semester, I'll give students all the answers. I'll give them lots of checkpoints. Basically, as they go, they can check their work. Towards the end of the semester, you can kind of take the training wheels off a little bit. and actually have the students, go from, a scratch model to an answer that's relatively further down in the process. So it's a nice way to kind of increase difficulty level throughout the semester. The other thing I'm going to show you here, and this is something that ExPrep has worked a lot with me on, is that I make my models dynamic, and that the students have to make them flexible. They have to reference parameters and recognize that those parameters change. That way, they're just not solving one problem. They're building a model that can really solve for any input you give them. So I'm going to flip over here to the spreadsheet. So I think you guys can all see that okay. So here, I'm just going to show you, this is one assignment that students get. This is one tab of 8. Basically, it's early in the semester. We're doing time value of money stuff. So in this example, I'm asking the students to build a model to calculate the present value of saving, in this case, $17,000 a year for 17 years if the interest rate is 7.6%. And we're going to start saving in 1 year, so we just have a standard annuity here. All right, so the students will come in. They have to do an answer. So this first one, I'm asking them to do it with math. So they can just come in and use the annuity formula, 1 minus 1 plus R raised to the minus number of, whoops, that happens a lot, minus number of periods. Make sure we lock that up. Something got thrown off, sorry about that. There we go, divided by R, and we get our answer. And now you can see actually what I was talking about is that I give the students the answers. So they're sitting right here, they can see them, and then they know when their model is correct. So they move on, they want to actually use the present value function, so let's just use that. Students love to use the built-in functions. With that, actually make sure we put the negative on the front, get the right value, we can get it that way. But then I want to encourage the students also to see the same problem, right? This is kind of where I'm teaching finance in Excel, and actually see the cash flows build the model out. So here we actually have them build the model down below. So here we're just going to build 25 years of cash flows, and we have to do a little bit of modeling. So we're going to use an if statement. So if the year is less than or equal to the number of years that we have, then I want the cash flow. Just getting that, otherwise it's 0. I then just have to do some discounting. All pretty basic stuff, but getting the students to actually do it and work through how it works in the model. They can actually see, a present value of $1, the first year is 93 cents. The second year it's 86 cents. They can start to see a little bit more of the finance as they're going through, rather than it just being a formula that they really don't know how it works. So you can see I've built out the model. We can just sum the cash flows now. And so the students get to see that hopefully they get the same answer, whether they use the math formula, the Excel formula, or build out the model themselves. So that's a really nice way, I think, to teach. I've found the students learn better this way. They engage with the material a little bit more. Now, I do want to point out some of the challenges that this raised and actually show you one other thing about the dynamics. So like I said, these parameters are built to change. So I can hit this reset parameters button, and that always happens before I grade these assignments. So the students know that the parameters are going to change. So they have to make sure their models are dynamic and are built really to use the power of Excel. All right, so 2 big challenges that I had to address to kind of make this work. And this is where ExPrep really worked with me to build these custom assignments. The first is obviously this random parameter stuff, right? Each of my assignments has 20 different sets of parameters in the background. So basically it randomly cycles between those 20 sets of parameters, 20 sets of answers. All right, so that seems to be enough that it's random enough from the student's perspective, but it means we have 20 different answer keys for ExPrep, and they have to know which one to work with. So this was kind of a solution we collaborated on that they figured out that was enough. There was enough for me and not too many for them that we could make this work. So we have 20 different answer keys. The other big piece that they had to build for me was the fact that I'm giving the students the answers, right? Students, I always see this every semester. Some students are going to be clever and they don't want to do the hard work. So they just set their answer equal to the correct answer, right? And on their end, it looks correct, right? It looks like I got it right. It lit up green, all good. However, when it gets graded by ExPrep, they created basically a special grading type that looks for whether this cell, G8 in this case, is referenced anywhere in the workbook. So if the students reference it anywhere, it's going to basically give them a 0 on the assignment. So that was kind of a special grading type they built for me. That way these assignments could work and really provide the student experience that I was looking for. All right, so let me hop back to my slides real quick here. That was kind of the first type of assignment I used. The second assignment I want to show you is a timed assignment. And this is really for my intro level class, because in the intro level class, what I want to encourage the students to do is just spend time in Excel. It's not enough to just go through these exercises or formulas one time and be like, oh yeah, I kind of get how it works, I'm done. No, I think they need to work through it multiple times. And that's for two reasons. One, to build up their keyboarding skills. If you're going to spend a lot of time in finance and ultimately in Excel, the better you are at keyboarding, the more time you're going to save for your, schooling, for your career, just for life. So it's a huge positive NPV project to actually spend time learning how to use the keyboard and keyboarding well in Excel. So that's one piece of it. And the other piece is just repetition and mastery, right? The more times you do something, the more familiar with it you are, you're less likely to forget it before you get to that next class where you're going to use it next semester. All right, so to that end, basically grades are earned based on the student's best time. So I want to encourage them to do this a lot of times or their number of attempts. And again, they just put in the time needed to master this stuff. All right, so let me flip over. I'm going to show you one of these. So this is a keyboarding exercise. You can see I have kind of grades built down here for, if you do this in 30 seconds or less, you get 100% and on down. And again, it's based on their best attempt. So they can attempt this as many times as they want. So I'm just going to hit my start button here. A lot of the macros that I've written in the background is VBA. It kind of runs independently of the ExPrep stuff. So it really just allows a lot of flexibility. All right, so I'm going to run through this and just kind of talk through it as I'm going, but it's just an exercise where the students get to use control and shift with arrow keys to learn how that all works. So I'm going to say, okay, and all I'm doing is using those control arrow keys. I'm going to use control page down to go to the next tab. I use F5 to jump to a cell. Again, just kind of encouraging students to be able to know these skills. Here I'm using control plus shift and then deselecting some stuff. And on this last tab, I do some auto summing. And then again, just moving around as much as we can. All right, so in that case, I did the challenge in 30 seconds exactly. I didn't use the mouse, so it tells me that. And then it actually gives me my scores. So you can see I've done this a few times in the last couple of days, just getting ready for this. It'll give me my best time, give me my total number of times I've attempted it. So it just gives me some stats I can work with. So ExPrep in this case doesn't really grade anything for correctness. The way my assignments are built is you have to get things right before you can move to the next tab. So I know that if a student finishes the assignment, they got it 100% correct. What I don't know is how long it took. So this is where ExPrep actually worked with me to build a custom report, which just runs through all the student files and reports out to me how many times they attempted the file, their best time, and also how much time they spent total working in the workbook. So that customization is really something they were able to work with me on to really, again, enable the student experience that I was looking for. The last thing I'll say about what I'm doing currently with my teaching is that I've flipped my classroom, right? During the pandemic, you record a bunch of videos. Post-pandemic, we're back in the classroom. I mean, not really post, but we're back in the classroom. And so now I can actually have the students watch the videos ahead of time, come to class and really get that engagement in class. And that's worked great for a lot of the students. I've really seen learning outcomes enhanced because I can spend about, half to 2/3 of my classes actually interacting one-on-one or with groups of students, really kind of getting them past the little stumbling blocks that otherwise they spend hours at home. So it really accelerates learning. I will say that if you're going to do that, make sure you give students an incentive to come to class. About half to a third will just take it as, hey, I don't have to come to class, and then they just don't learn as much. So that's something I've learned is you really have to give them some reason to come beyond just their own benefit, because that doesn't seem to be enough. I'm sure you all understand. All right, the last thing I just want to plug is the Microsoft Excel Collegiate Challenge. So this is something that I started about a year ago. The whole idea here is to create a student-focused online modeling competition. It started as financial modeling only, but we've really broadened it to be all Excel modeling, really just to be inclusive to other majors in the business school, but also across campus, engineering, computer science. Anybody that's interested in Excel can get involved with this. And part of it's because the pro level competitions are at a pro level and the students get intimidated by that. So we're trying to give students better learning opportunities this way. I want to emphasize it's free for students. We got a lot of funding from some companies and also donors, even for the finalists, which I'll talk about in a minute. What I think is most interesting about it, really in the context of this webinar, is that we're going to start the competition. It'll be mid-September when this starts, with a 3 or 4 week training period where students are going to get access to models on the ExPrep platform. One of them is going to be like the keyboarding exercise I showed you. And the students can really learn modeling, learn some Excel techniques through this process. I'm going to have videos put together to walk the students through it. And it's really about learning. That's what and essentially what we want to give at the end of it. If students do that learning, if they actually compete in the competition, try out these models, kind of get a little bit more real world experience, we're going to give them a certificate of completion. This is something they can put on their resume, right? Students love that. It also gives a way for you guys to check if you want to make this extra credit, which is what I've been doing for years. It gives you a way to check that they actually completed everything. So if this is something of interest to you, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to report which of your students actually complete it, or they can even just show you their certificate of completion when they get it. Like I said, great opportunity to get credit. Now, as far as finalists go, we're going to be flying in the top 15 students from around the world, maybe a few more based on funding, and also 15 teams. So if you have a bunch of students that are interested in this and you get a bunch of students signed up, there are going to be incentives basically built to where you could bring a team of 3 students and you could come to Tucson as well on December 3rd. So that's when we're going to do the finals event. It's going to be a kind of a big deal here. We're going to make it live on YouTube. It's going to kind of have an esports feel towards the end. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. So please reach out if you're interested in learning more. We did have a spring competition. We had over 1,000 students from 70 countries. You can actually, there's a link there for the YouTube. You can look it up. And also our website is actually up to where you guys can start signing up now if you're interested. And I'll actually just flip over to that super quick so you can just see what it looks like. There it is, the Financial Modeling Challenge. So Collegiate Challenge, so you can sign up. It's fmworldcup.com/university championship. So if you want to check that out, please feel free. Last thing is, feel free to reach out, whether you want to take a look at my teaching content in a little more depth about the Excel Collegiate Challenge or Excel Esports. The last thing I'm going to plug, sorry to be plugging a bunch of stuff, is that I was actually on ESPN this morning. So I compete at the pro level in a lot of this Excel modeling stuff. So I was part of an all-star battle. And so financial modeling on Excel was on ESPN, I think, for the first time ever this morning as part of ESPN The Ocho Day. So it was a really fun event. They did a great job on the production of it. So if you have ESPN, just search Excel Esports and you'll find it. So I think that's most of what I got prepared. At this point, I'm just happy to answer questions. Essentially, what I end up doing is I take my assignments, I put them up on the platform. ExPrep has a platform. The students ultimately have to, you give them a link at the beginning of the semester. They use that link. They get to your course page. They go to the site. They see the assignments listed. They click it. That downloads the assignment form. They finish the assignment, and there's like a little submit upload button. Basically, so I'll start out with my initial hesitation for using ExPrep. And that was that I like students to be able to build a model from scratch, have their answers kind of wherever, and just, give me the answer that you need to give me at the end of the day. So I thought I like the flexibility of that aspect. I've actually come to kind of realize over the last few years that until you're at a very advanced level, that doesn't make a ton of sense. A lot of the students need a lot more hand-holding, a lot more guidance on how to build these models and see them built a number of times. And then that gives you structure to where you can know where certain answers are going to be or where to look for them. The other way around it is you just make a cell kind of like you saw in my assignment where there's a highlighted cell where like, put your answer here. And as long as you can put the answer somewhere that you know where it's going to be each time, ExPrep can check whether it's correct. And so, that's really the minimum requirement is put it in some identifiable place and then they can go from there with it. Yes. Basically the students download it and then they can work on it, up until the due date. And, if something goes wrong, then they can download it again and start from scratch. So there's a lot of flexibility there. One thing I actually built into my assignments that I like is I built a timer in. that kind of checks with VBA whether or not they are active in the spreadsheet and when they're moving around. And it gives me a total time that they've spent in the spreadsheet. So I can kind of see that, over a number of days, if a student comes in and says, I've been working on this for 3 days, and I open their spreadsheet, it's like you spent 20 minutes on it. It's kind of a nice way to see that. So again, just something you can build custom on the back end.
They're also asking about interfacing with the LMS. Definitely. I mean, obviously, single sign-on is a feature that students love, where they can just go straight from your LMS, click the assignment, and then be in your ExPrep classroom ready to take it. So if we want to set up interfacing with LMS, not a problem. You want it and we want it too. So not a problem. ExPrep has an assignment for anything you'd want to learn in Excel, from how to embed a hyperlink on the low level through, pivot tables, and even beyond if somebody needed it. So if there is something that needed to be taught, we do that with a lot of schools. One of the synergies that David was talking about that we get on campus when we get multiple professors using us, when they do want to refer back to Excel training, is we're able to basically embed Excel training into all of these classes by creating the content and having it available. But it also allows the professors just to have a common language. So if David has, I know David does a lot of lookups in some of his content. So if he has a student that's struggling with a lookup function, he would be able to say, hey, go to the ExPrep training, go to lesson 3, hit the lookup function between now and next Thursday, and you should be in a better situation to understand how to do that.
I'll just add, if you want it to be tied to finance, I've put those, similar training modules together for that 1 credit course that we have our juniors take. So you can email me. All the videos are actually on my YouTube channel. So feel free to email me, reach out. I'd show you some of that content as well.
All right. Anybody else? I know David has another piece of content he's gonna walk through real quick for those that are still here. If there's any other questions, feel free to pop them up, and we'll do our best I'll do my best to respond back to you in the Q&A.
All right. So I was just going to give you guys an idea of later in the semester, kind of what ends up showing up for the students. This is when we're in the part of the semester where the students are actually building financial spreadsheets, or like 3-statement models, where you have your income statement up top, your balance sheet, your statement of cash flows. And so you can see that now I have a lot more answer cells and also a lot more check values for the students. So this is a pretty early assignment where I'm kind of giving them a check for every single value they're building throughout this. And you can see kind of as I go down, eventually you get down to the balance sheet and you make sure everything matches. So basically you can build these things out a lot bigger with as many questions as you want. I think this one has 227 questions in the assignment, and the students can see, which ones they got right, which ones they got incorrect. The reason I also brought this up was just to show, if anybody wanted to see a little bit more of what's going on in the background. All these assignments are built with a lot of stuff that happens kind of on this background calculations tab that makes it easier for me to build these assignments, right? Basically, I have a number of controls in here. And again, if you guys want to see these, I'm happy to share them. But you end up having places where you control the random inputs, right? All those different inputs and parameters that change, and we have to store them all. So you can see lots of different random values stored. You can see also lots of different answers stored. I also have kind of an output tab that I mentioned, right? In this case, it gives me the best score from the students. It also tells me the total time they spent working in the spreadsheet, like I talked about. I also track the times they use the mouse to try to encourage them not to use the mouse too much. That doesn't work on a Mac, and I've never been able to solve that problem, but at least it works for some of the students. So really, I was just going to show you guys just a little taste of kind of the depth that you can go into in some of this to make this easier to scale and kind of build more assignments. And this is just an engine that I built to build my assignments, and I'm sure you guys can do whatever you want to do on your customization front. Log on to ESPN and check out the Excel esports, because it's a lot of fun. I think getting students involved in it is a great way to get them more engaged in Excel and spending their time doing things that are more productive than what they might do otherwise. I will one more time plug the Collegiate Challenge, right? This is kind of my baby over the last couple of years, trying to get more students involved. If you guys have a university that you think you can get your students involved, that'd be fantastic. So please reach out.
Yeah.
We'll give you lots of marketing.
And there's no cost, David. Make sure you add that. There's no cost for these students, right? Make sure that people know no cost. I mean, this is something that's a free giveaway for the most part. And David convinced me to have my 13-year-old son get involved, right? I mean, just why not? Just David sold me on the exposure, just getting the exposure. So why not?
really, I mean, it's going up to events, it's just practicing past cases. They have a lot of these out there now. If you get involved, Financial Modeling World Cup, their website has lots of old cases. So, I'd go through old cases. And actually, I learned a lot along the way. So I actually have a spreadsheet that I use whenever I start one of these competitions. It has a lot of lambdas in it. I don't know if you guys have gotten into lambdas yet, but basically it's a way to write your own functions in Excel. And I've written a number of lambdas that just take kind of common things that you see in competitions and just makes it quicker. I have some pre-formatting built out. Data tables take a few seconds to build, but if I can have it pre-built and ready to go, it just makes my life that much easier when I'm competing. Really, you're looking to try to shave seconds off wherever you can, and particularly minutes sometimes. Some tasks just take a long time to do. So if you can build that ahead of time, I have some macros built that'll do things like that for me. So there's been a lot of kind of strategizing pre-competition to build up these resources. And so actually the next big round, I think, starts in September. So probably in the next few weeks, I'll start trying some challenges I haven't done before, and kind of adding more to that kind of quiver of tools that I'll use during those competitions.
I'm just going to post a link in the chat to my demo calendar. So if anybody would like to hop on my calendar to receive more information or take a demo and take a look at everything that David's talking about and really get a trip through the platform, you can be able to see how David's students are interacting with his content. I have lots of content that I can demo for you. If you have any of your own content that you would like to see on the platform, I know David will tell you at some point that's the process. You got to send Brooks some content for him to automate for you to look at. But I put a link to my calendar. Feel free to hop on to my calendar. Like I said, again, you're going to be receiving an email immediately following this webinar that will have my contact information. It will have that link as well. I know David's putting in his information in the chat for you guys as well, but definitely feel free to reach out to either of us. We both have some cool stuff to show you and talk to you about. ExPrep giving us the opportunity to work with you and your students. It's a lot of fun to talk to you every semester and see what's coming up, what's coming down the pike for new content and whatnot, David. So thank you very much. I'm sure you and I will talk probably in the days to come, but have a great weekend. And for everybody else on this call, have a great weekend. And I hope to see some of you on my calendar to continue the conversation. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, David. And we'll get you out of here. Enjoy that weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.